You're listening to the Daily Mishnah Podcast with Benedict.
We're in the fifth chapter of Gittin. We're in questions of tikkun olam, repairing the world. We've said before, by the way, that there's the parallel, that the rabbis are engaged in the parallel between marriage and slavery, these two different kinds of relationships, perhaps of servitude, and the relationship of the people of Israel to the land of Israel. So these are three themes essentially running through the tractate. And the tractate is focused on breakage and it's focused on repair. So maybe it's not a coincidence that the stories about the destruction of Jerusalem by the Romans and the destruction of Betar, for that matter, 50 years later, maybe it's not a coincidence that these stories are taught in the tractate of Gittin, in the tractate of divorce. If you like, as we're thinking about a divorce between a man and a woman, we're thinking about the divorce between the people of Israel and the land of Israel. And of course, when you read through those tractates, it's very striking that the Talmud never blames, say, the Romans or the Babylonians for destroying destroying the temple. The divorce is never seen as something imposed by an external party. It's a question of the relationship between the parties concerned. So it's always as a result of the behavior of the Jews that they're exiled from the land, not the behavior of the Romans or the Babylonians. And the stories about the destruction of Jerusalem are taught in this chapter, and they're related to the Mishnah, which we're about to learn. We're in the sixth Mishnah of Gittin. Lo haya sikrikon biuda b'harugei hamilchama. There was no sikarikon in Judah while people were being killed in war. It's a very odd word, sikarikon. It seems to be something to do with a bandit. And I couldn't help noticing that the word does come up in the Gemara. So Yochanan ben Zakkai is one of the leaders one of the leaders of the rabbis in Jerusalem during the siege of Jerusalem by Vespasian. And he has a nephew who is one of the zealots, one of the people who want to make war with the Romans. The rabbis, of course, want to negotiate with the Romans. The zealots want to make war. And I can't help noticing, and I brought you the Gemara actually on the source sheet. Abba Sikra, Reish Birionei d'Yerushalayim. Abba Sikra was the leader of the bandits, the Birionei of Jerusalem. Bar Achtei Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai Hava, and he was also the nephew of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. So we do have this word Sikra in the Gemara relating to the name of a bandit. Maybe there's a connection there. I don't know. Anyway. The Mishnah says, Lo haya sikrikon bihuda b'harugei milchama. Me harugei hamilchama v'heirech yesh ba sikrikon keitzad. How does it work? So we've got this sikarikon going on. We don't know how it works. The Mishnah is going to explain it, but in order to understand the Mishnah, we need to know that sikarikon refers to some kind of bandit, some kind of Gentile bandit. Maybe, maybe even a government-sponsored agency. Not quite clear whether referring to a band of bandits or a single bandit. They're going to force a Jew to sell land in the land of Israel to him or to them. So they're going to force a Jew to give up their land. And the Mishnah is interested in, well, is that a valid sale? Is that a valid sale? And what implications does that have for tikkun olam? And the law of sikarikon essentially is the law that if you buy back land from this bandit or from this Roman, you have to in some way compensate the original owner to a certain extent, but not too much, because we want to encourage Jews to buy back land that's been dispossessed. We want to compensate the original owners, but if we do this too much, if we provide full compensation to the original owners, of course, no one will ever be able to afford to buy back land. And the first route that the Mishnah takes is pragmatic. During the time the war is going on, actually no compensation is paid. We recognize that as a valid sale. And if somebody can afford to buy the land back, good luck to them. They buy the land back. They buy the land back from the Roman. After after the slaughter finished, there is this law of Sikarikon, and let's now find out how that works. Lakach min hasikrin vechazar. A person buys a field from the Sikarikon, velakach mibal habayit, and then he basically pays. He agrees to pay from the original owner. Mekacho batel. His purchase is void. So we assume that if he approaches the Roman first, we assume that the original owner is essentially acting under duress. The purchase is no good. Mi bal habayit v'chazar v'lakach min hasikrikon. If he buys it first from the original owner and then buys it from the sikarikon, מבעל הבית וחזר ולקח מן הסיקריקון מקחו קיים. So he can make an arrangement with the original owner to compensate him for the field, and then he can go to the Roman and buy it. So essentially he has to pay out to both parties. He's going to pay out to both parties at a rate that they both agree. And there's going to be a parallel halakha with relating to a person buying married women's property. Now, of course, a married woman still owns her property when she goes into the marriage. The husband is allowed to benefit from the income from it, but she essentially remember we learned in the tractate of Ketubot, the central contract is that he has her income, he can get the income from her land, but he has to support her. Effectively, there's a trade of support for income. That's essentially that's the essential contract in the Mishnah Ketubot, which we've learned. But the capital value of that property still belongs to the wife. And we are anxious that someone is going to pressure a married woman to sell her property. So let's jump into this part of the Mishnah now. Similar, we'll see this is an analogous Mishnah. Mina ish vechazar belakach mina isha. So a person agrees to buy a piece of property from the husband and then goes and agrees with the wife. Makacho batal. The purchase is void. We cannot assume that this is a willing sale on the part of the wife. Mina isha vechazar velakach mina ish. If he agrees to buy it from the wife, and then he goes and gets the agreement of the husband, at this point it works. That works. Makacho kaya. We assume that if the wife gives her agreement first, she's not pressurized by the husband. So the sale works. It's parallel. And we then learn Zor Mishnah Rishonah. This is what happened first. This was effectively the first version of the Mishnah. Interesting that we're hearing from the Mishnah about its own historical construction. What happened? What happened next? What happened next? Gittin shel acharehen amru. The court that came after them said, Halkeach min hasikrikon noten labalim revia. The court that came after said that if you buy property from the Sikari Khan, you only had to give the original owner a quarter. So you didn't have to give full value to the original owner. You only had to give a quarter. Effectively, we accept that some of the original owner's value was lost at the time that he was forced to hand over his field to the Sikari Khan. And the Mishnah asks, well, okay, how does it work? When does that work? Eimatai. When does it work? Bisman she'ein biyadam likach. This is when they can't buy it themselves, i.e., when the original owner can't buy it back. So if the original owner can't buy it back, we're going to let a third party buy it back. We want Jews to buy back land in the land of Israel, so we're going to let someone else buy it back, and then he's going to pay a quarter to the original owner. Ava, but im yesh biyadam likach, but if they are able to buy it back, if the original owner has got the financial capacity to buy it back, im yesh biyadam likach, hein kodmin l'chol adam. They get priority. If the original owner has the financial capacity to buy it back from the Sikari Khan, no one bids against them. They have priority. Rebbe Hoshiv Bedin. So now we're in the end of the 2nd century, maybe even the beginning of the 3rd century. So we're 130 years after the destruction. Rebbe Hoshiv Bedin. So Rebbe assembled a court. Then he knew, and they voted. That's how they used to do it. By that point, we're in votes. We're not in drush. They voted. She'im shahat lifnei Sikari Khan 12 chodesh, if the property had been in the hands of the Sikari Khan for 12 months, so this bandit owns it for 12 months, kol hakodem velokeach noten laba'alim revia. Whoever purchased it and whoever acquired it had to give a quarter to the original owners. So whoever bought it from the Sikari Khan had to give a quarter to the original owners rather than the full purchase price as the original Mishnah required.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the Daily Mishnah Podcast with Benedict.